All right, get this. Imagine building a company worth thousands of crores, but you never take a single rupee from outside investors. And on top of that, you don't spend a single rupee on marketing. Sounds completely impossible, right? Well, that is the almost unbelievable true story of Nithin Kamath and his company, Zerodha. So, how on earth do you pull that off? How do you build a multi-billion-dollar company with zero marketing spend? That's really the core question we're going to unpack today. See, this isn't your typical founder story. We're not talking about some Ivy League grad. This is about a guy who dropped out of college, went completely broke, and learned his most valuable lessons working the night shift in a call center. So let's dive right in. This is the story of the zero-ad billionaire, Nithin Kamath, the man who totally changed the game for how millions of Indians invest their money. But look, to really get how big of a deal his success is, you have to understand the struggle. We've got to go back to the beginning, because his journey from being flat broke to building a massive brokerage, well, let's just say it was anything but a straight line. So the story starts back in 1996 when Nithin moves to Bangalore. He gives engineering a shot, but famously drops out. Apparently, a third-year class called Signals and Systems was the final straw. So he turns to what he knows, trading, something he'd been doing since he was just 17. But then, in 2001, disaster hits. He goes completely bust, wipes out. To survive, and more importantly, to try and rebuild his trading capital, he had to take a job working nights at a call center. And he did that for 4 straight years. Now, you might think he'd look back at that time as a total failure, right? But Nithin sees it completely differently. For him, that was his real education. He says it himself, "I learned all my life skills at the call center." That's where he really mastered the art of selling over the phone, a skill that, believe it or not, would become the bedrock for everything he built later on. Okay, and this is where those call center skills really start to pay off. The story takes a fascinating turn here. It's a moment of what I can only call humble genius, and it sets the stage for a complete revolution. We're talking about the Kamath brothers' pact. So by 2006, Nithin's working as a sub-broker, and he notices something really important. His younger brother, Nikhil, was just a better trader, flat out. Now, a lot of people would let their ego get in the way there, right? Not Nithin. He made a brilliant strategic call based on that one simple, honest observation. And that's how they formed their pact. It was a perfect partnership. The plan was simple. Nikhil, the better trader, would focus on the markets. Any profits he made, that would become the seed money, the capital to fund their new business. This is key, because it meant they'd never have to go begging for money from venture capitalists. And Nithin? He would focus on what he was great at, building the actual brokerage business. All right, so with this powerful pact in place, the brothers were ready. It was time to build the disruption, to create Zerodha. Their mission? To tackle the biggest headaches that Indian investors were dealing with back then. And you know, their mission was baked right into the company name itself, Zerodha. It's a mix of zero and radha, which is a Sanskrit word that means barrier or obstacle. Their whole goal was to remove the barriers. We're talking crazy high fees, clunky, terrible technology, all the stuff that kept regular people from investing. And that became their marketing strategy. Not ads, just build a product so good and so cheap that people couldn't help but talk about it. You know, when they first launched back in 2010, their goals were, well, they were pretty modest. Nithin actually remembers sending an email saying that if they could just get to 10,000 customers, 10,000, they would have arrived in life. So how'd they do? Well, today, that number isn't 10,000. It's over 1.5 crore clients. That's more than 15 million people. It makes Zerodha the largest retail brokerage in the entire country. Just incredible. And this brings us right back to the most mind-blowing part of this whole story. This astronomical growth, going from a tiny side project to the biggest player in the game. All of it was done with a marketing budget of exactly 0. But listen, it wasn't just the two brothers. They had a secret weapon. Their CTO, Kailash, nods. He was the tech genius, the architect who actually built the smooth, low-cost platform that made their whole vision a reality. So you had Nithin with the vision and the broking know-how, Nikhil with the trading and the capital, and Kailash with the technology. It was the perfect trifecta. Now, what's really interesting is what happened as the company got huge. You'd think the philosophy would change, right? But Nithin's just became, well, more unconventional. He doubled down on doing what was right for the customer, not just what was good for explosive growth.
I mean, think about this. He is constantly warning his own customers to be careful, to avoid speculative hype and greed. You've got him on record calling the crazy rush for pre-IPO shares phenomenally stupid. Now, that kind of trading activity makes his company money, but he warns people against it anyway. He's clearly playing the long game here. And that long game philosophy, it runs through the whole company. By saying no to venture capital money, they don't have that constant pressure to just grow, 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 even if it hurts their users. They've kept the team surprisingly lean, which keeps them focused. And get this, every single manager at Zerodha was promoted from within. That builds an incredible sense of loyalty and culture. It's all a deliberate choice to focus on the health of the team over that toxic hustle culture you see everywhere else.
And it's not just about business. The Kamath brothers are now some of India's youngest and most important philanthropists. Through their Rainmatter Foundation, they've already pledged almost 150 crores of their own money to really critical causes like fighting climate change and building a more sustainable future. So, when you look at the whole picture, Nithin Kamath's story isn't just about building a multi-billion-dollar company. It's a powerful challenge to how we even define success in the first place. It really leaves us with a huge question for the entire startup world. What truly matters more? The nonstop hustle or the long-term health of your customers, your team, and maybe even yourself?